Our guest this afternoon is Jeff Kline. He's the athletic director for Mountain Morris Consolidated Schools in Mountain Morris, Michigan. And we're here today to speak about Jeff's time as a Marine and how a lot of those things that he experienced in the Marines, the things that he learned, translated into his current career as an athletic director.
You know, I think there's a lot of things that correlate back and forth between the two. Maybe the ability to stay calm in chaotic situations. I think you're thrown into a lot of things that you try to plan for, but are unforeseen. I also think thinking outside the box, not having, went straight into education right out of high school. I think having that other experience in the Marine Corps and some other different things before I became an athletic director have been just instrumental in maybe not always thinking the same way that everybody else does. And then I also think too, the ability to have tough conversations.
Jeff, what are some of the leadership characteristics maybe that you learned during your time in the Marine Corps, and how are you able to maybe adapt those and then promote those among your coaches?
When you look at your own athletic department, as far as coaches, you're trying to pick apart or dissect what makes them unique, what pushes their buttons. And as a coach, before I became an athletic director, when you're dealing with your athletes, you're thinking about how can I get the most out of that person? And just if the same guy was coaching you and I, what may motivate you might be the exact opposite for me. I think for me as an athlete, if somebody told me I couldn't do something, that was a great motivator for me. But I also know too, as a coach, some guys I had to kind of push and yell. Some guys I had to put my arm around. And I think it's no different when you're coaching coaches. Some people are going to know more about the sport that they coach than you do. But I also think there's little nuances that you can help them through with how to deal with different personalities. And so if we're able to pass on those little nuances and kind of grow as an AD, I think we can push our coaches to also grow and then be better for our kids in general.
The Marine Corps lists honor, courage, and commitment as their core values. And I would say that those are three core values that we strive to promote within high school athletics too, for our student athletes. How would you say those values translate into high school athletics?
You could go a number of different ways with this answer, but I just think that some things that were really instilled in me in the Marine Corps were just that discipline, that work ethic, and just having that integrity piece. And I think when you're able to display that, stay true to that, and communicate that, I think that other people in your community, albeit your athlete, your students and coworkers, I think that everybody kind of benefits from that. So I think they know where you stand, and I think they know what lines you are not going to cross also.
Absolutely. Like Marines, high school athletic directors need to make important decisions in a timely manner. You spoke earlier about there are certain things you just cannot prepare for, right? You try to do the best you can, but sometimes there are decisions you have to make that you aren't necessarily ready for. What are some strategies for making those sound decisions in a split second?
Well, I think you go back to your past experiences and hopefully have those to lean on. If you don't, I think you got to make educated decisions. I think you seek input from those around you, your peers, the people who work for you, and the people you work for. And, having those conversations before that moment actually happens, and soaking up the knowledge, going through classes that, the NIAAA and the MIAAA offer at these conferences, sitting around tables, and attending your monthly league meetings or your county meetings. Though you're just getting all that input, which makes you a well-rounded AD. We all have issues. They're just different issues. But talking through what others have went through is such a great, sounding board. And it's invaluable. Being in the Marine Corps, being put in stressful situations, I think it helps you keep a level head. I think it gives you something not to rush to judgment. And I think that has been a great experience that I learned in my 5 years in the Marine Corps that have really translated well to, my position here as an athletic director.
And then, of course, whether that's in the Marines, whether it's in an athletic department, one of the top priorities used by both is looking out for the welfare and the well-being of their respective teams. What are some ways, how can a leader look to kind of prioritize that? And what are some strategies that they can use to make sure that the quality of welfare, well-being is upkept?
first and foremost in the Marine Corps, it was about relationships. If you're going into a stressful situation, you're being put in those situations, you have to rely on the people around you. And so I think with your coaches, with your athletes, building those relationships, having those tough conversations if needed, but also having those just fun moments, giving those kids such a great experience. That's what I think I had in high school as an athlete. And it kind of, drew me back. I graduated from Mount Morris. So coming back home and just giving kids maybe something similar to the experience that I had. I think a lot of check-ins. I think, in the Marine Corps, when we would do presentations, and even now, you kind of got to be able to read the room. Are people understanding the message that you're trying to portray? If you're instructing, or if you're just running a simple meeting with colleagues or your coaching staff, you also need to be able to think outside the box with them. If I try to communicate to you one way, that doesn't mean that everybody else is receiving the message the same way, and then it's working for them the same way. So you almost have to be able to put yourself in their shoes as the message is coming towards them, and then also just seek that feedback, seek constant feedback from people when you're building a relationship or when you're asking for understanding.
And finally, one more commonality between the Marine Corps and high school athletics, again, whether that's coaches or student athletes, is creating an environment where people are hungry and willing to continue improving, kind of facilitating that environment of self-improvement constantly. What are some ways that you do that now as an athletic director?
Well, I think kind of what we just talked about, I think it goes back to that relationship piece. Being a young Marine, you're thrown into a situation where you know nobody. You're outside of that comfort zone of your family. Those Marines, your roommates, those are who become your family. Still, we're talking of 25 years removed from the Marine Corps, but yet those relationships still hold true to some of the most important relationships I've had in my life. As far as getting that to that point with my coaches or athletes, I think it's a lot of self-reflection. You talk about building those relationships and having conversations with your peers and seeking feedback from them and being humble, promoting a culture where feedback needs to be constant, needs to be direct. And if you're always seeking it, I think that it promotes a culture in which people can feel comfortable coming to you if they have an issue. And I think if it starts here, I think it carries down to those teams. And being not only a Marine, but a lover of athletics and all kind of sports, the best teams that I ever played on were ones where you could have truthful conversations in a stressful moment, and nobody took them in a negative manner. They took them in a way as, hey, we're all trying to get better here. We're trying to prove, and we're trying to ultimately reach a common goal of, victory at the moment. And I think that is a culture in which everybody would want.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today on kind of some of the themes between your time in the Marine Corps and your current position as a high school athletic director. And we really appreciate taking the time, and best of luck to you throughout the rest of this year.
One of the first questions I ask is, what is your why? Why did you join the team that you're a part of? Why are you doing those athletics? Why are you practicing music? What is your purpose?
It takes a special kind of person to be on our team, to dedicate their college life to being one of the best women in the country on the wrestling mat.
The job of the educator is to help train the minds of students.
Before I wound up coaching, I was a teacher. The sort of kid that I aim for listens really well.
My job is developing student athletes who embrace the fighting spirit to become leaders in life.
When students express an interest or desire, I connect them to the resources that will make them successful. We want leaders who are dedicated and have an attitude of service to our country, our community, and to oneself.
Alicia Chambers, Captain, United States Marine Corps, Officer Selection Officer.
The Marine Corps partners with the American Volleyball Coaches Association.
I was first exposed to have the Marines come and speak because of the partnership with USA Wrestling.
The national partnerships, fortunately, been something I've been able to be a part of. I can provide coaches with leadership challenges. Give me a track, a field, and 30 minutes, I can make sure your team works and collaborates together.
Through the AVCA's work with the Marine Corps, I was selected for the Quantico Leadership Experience to show how they train officers.
There is nothing like it in this world. They really foster a spirit of collaboration.
It really revolutionized how I coach and the emphasis on leadership and integrity. What I don't think a lot of teachers understand is how readily available some of these programs are with the Marine Corps.
I would encourage you as an educator to learn more about how they can reinforce your message.
First and foremost, they're going to see a change in their athletes and their students.
Our swimming program and being a Marine, a lot of those similarities is what drives us to championships.
There is a shared purpose around what the Marine Corps does and what we are trying to do for our students.
The Marines are the tough, the gritty, they're the first in, they're the last out. We've tried to take that same fighting spirit and give it to our team.
My name is Cheryl Harris Curtis.
I'm Jim Dietz.
My name is Ashley Sword.
My name is Jeff Dugdale.
These coaches and these educators are incredibly important. Whether they know it or not, they're making an impact on these students. To learn more about the Marine Corps and the resources we can provide you and your students, visit connect.marines.com.